Look around. Most men today are broke, addicted, anxious, lonely, and numb. They don't feel powerful. They don't feel sharp. They don't even feel like men. But here's the truth no one will say out loud. This wasn't an accident. This was designed. From the moment you were born, you were handed a script. Go to school. Follow the rules. Get a job. Be nice. Don't stand out. Consume. Obey. If you follow that script, you get approval. If you question it, you get punished. So most men choose silence. They nod, they smile, they comply. And then quietly they break. But here's the part that burns. The system rewards your weakness, because a weak man is easy to control. He's easier to sell to, easier to silence, easier to discard. Weak men don't start revolutions. They don't build empires. They don't speak with clarity. They exist to obey and disappear quietly. And if you think that's just a sad outcome of modern life, you're wrong. It's the strategy. This video isn't about motivation. It's not about working harder. It's about exposing the machine. Because the moment you see how the system trains weakness into you, you'll never look at it the same way again. You weren't born weak. You were trained to be. Let's break down the 3 core systems that manufacture obedient, confused, low testosterone men and how they profit from it. 1. The education system, factory-grade obedience. The modern school system was built during the industrial era, not to create thinkers but to create workers. Uniform schedules, permission to speak, memorization over curiosity, obedience over innovation. You're not taught to question. You're taught to comply. By the time you graduate, you've mastered one thing. Sit down, shut up, and wait to be told what to do. And if you dare break that pattern, you're punished, labeled, drugged, not because you're bad, but because you're unmanageable. Unmanageable men are dangerous, so they make you manageable through shame, sedation, and structure. 2. The media machine. Addicted, numb, and distracted. Once you leave school, you're dropped into a world that doesn't challenge you. It distracts you. Scroll, swipe, binge, compare, repeat. Every second of your attention is monetized. Your brain isn't being sharpened. It's being melted. Instead of ambition, you chase approval. Instead of building, you compare. Instead of moving forward, you scroll in circles, watching other men live the life you wish you had. And it's not just entertainment, it's programming. You're taught that masculinity is toxic, that confidence is arrogance, that ambition is greed. So you soften, you hesitate, you shrink, and every time you do, the system smiles, because a distracted man is a disarmed man. 3. The consumer trap. Dopamine over discipline. You're constantly being told, you're not enough, but if you buy this, you will be. So you spend on clothes, on supplements, on apps, on status, on simulation, not because you need these things, but because they keep you from feeling the ache of your own unfulfilled potential. The system doesn't want you disciplined, it wants you dopamine dependent, because disciplined men build, addicted men buy. The economy isn't built on excellence, it's built on your emptiness, and the more disconnected you are from your power, the more money you'll throw trying to replace it. All 3 systems have one goal: predictability. A man who questions nothing is predictable. A man who doubts himself is manageable. A man who numbs his instincts is profitable. That's why the system doesn't collapse under failure. It thrives on it. Because your mediocrity isn't a flaw, it's the feature. You were never meant to be like this. You weren't born passive. You weren't born unsure. You weren't born compliant. You were born capable of fire. But they doused it, not with violence, but with slow sedation. Every time they told you to be realistic. Every time they called you too intense. Every time they handed you a reward for doing exactly what you were told. That was another brick in your psychological cage. And now, you feel it. The urge to break something, to prove something, to build something that matters. That's not a crisis. That's your instinct trying to wake you up. The cage was built slowly. Now it's time to tear it down, violently. This is where the shift begins. In Chapter 2, we break the silence. We show you how they maintain control and why they're terrified of you waking up. Because once you see the game, you never unsee it. The truth is, strength isn't just discouraged. It's dangerous. Because once you're strong, you stop asking for permission. Why would the system want you weak? Why would a culture built on productivity, growth, and innovation want its men sedated, submissive, and soft? Because obedience pays, and strong men don't obey. They question, they build, they revolt. Let's make this simple. A weak man buys, a strong man builds. And for the people in charge, that difference is terrifying. Weak men are economically useful. From the system's point of view, weakness, revenue. A man who is anxious buys supplements. A man who is lonely pays for subscriptions. A man who lacks purpose pays for status symbols. A man who fears conflict hires someone else to fight his battles. And a man without discipline? He's perfect. He needs reminders, apps, therapists, gurus, and dopamine just to stay afloat. He doesn't make decisions. He outsources them. He doesn't command life. He consumes it. And as long as he stays in that cycle, the machine keeps running smoothly. The myth of progressiveness. Today we're told that culture is evolving, that old-school masculinity is outdated, even toxic. But look closer. Who actually benefits when men are told, don't be too assertive, don't take up too much space, don't pursue power, it's problematic. Be sensitive, be soft, be safe. It's not women, it's not families, it's not society, it's the system. Because a society without strong men is manageable. A culture without fire is predictable. And when that happens, the architects of the system never get challenged. Because everyone is too tired, too ashamed, too distracted to even fight back. Real strength is a threat. Let's define strength so we're clear. Strength is clarity. Strength is saying no without explaining yourself. Strength is standing still when others beg you to move. Strength is building something when the world laughs. Strength is not needing the system, because you've outgrown it. This type of man can't be guilt-tripped. He can't be sold victimhood. He can't be swayed by popularity, shame, or noise. This man doesn't need the world's permission, and that makes him powerful. And that's exactly why the system must suppress him. The culture of guilt and softness. Modern culture doesn't just suppress strength, it pathologizes it. If you speak directly, you're called aggressive. If you want to win, you're called toxic. If you don't tolerate nonsense, you're called controlling. If you walk away from dysfunction, you're called selfish. Over time, the message becomes clear. If you want to belong, you must be less intense, less ambitious, less clear, less masculine. And slowly, you begin to doubt yourself, not because you're wrong, but because your power made them uncomfortable. This isn't personal. It's structural. It's how the system polices boldness, by turning certainty into a sin. But here's the twist. You can't stay numb forever. Eventually, a man reaches a threshold. He can only scroll for so long. He can only play nice for so long. He can only suppress his edge for so long before it rots him from the inside out. That's when the pain kicks in. The quiet panic. The sense that you're drifting. That life is happening to you. That you've become a spectator in your own existence. And in that moment, you realize your obedience was never a virtue. It was a cost. A cost you've been paying in peace, respect, and potential. Why the system can't handle men like you? Let me be blunt. You were never meant to fit into this system. You were meant to outgrow it. And the moment you do, the system loses control. Because you stop spending to impress. You stop apologizing for your clarity. You stop tolerating mediocrity in your circle. You stop reacting to the world and start shaping it. At that point, you're no longer just a man. You become a rival to the system itself. Summary: the system's worst nightmare. A man who knows himself. A man who trusts his gut. A man who builds his own path. A man who doesn't need permission. A man who doesn't wait for opportunity. He makes it. That man doesn't fit into the machine. He threatens it. And that's exactly who you're becoming. Not just because you watched this far, but because you feel the war inside you. The war between what the world trained you to be and who you know you were born to become. And in Chapter 3, we go all in on that war. We'll break down exactly how the system engineers distraction and dependency, and how to tear those wires out of your mind for good. Because now you know what they're afraid of. It's time to become it. In the war for your mind, the most powerful weapon isn't violence, it's distraction. Not guns, not laws, not even shame. It's dopamine. Because if they can keep you chasing, they never have to worry about you building. And in 2025, they've perfected it. You are surrounded by systems specifically engineered to hijack your attention, not by accident, but by design. This isn't a glitch in the matrix. This is the matrix, the neurochemistry of control. Let's get brutally clear. Dopamine is the brain chemical that motivates you to act. It's the I want it molecule, the feeling of craving, of seeking, of chasing. Every time you scroll, swipe, refresh, click, or check, dopamine hits. Tiny sparks of pleasure, false wins. And the system has learned how to weaponize it. Apps are designed to never satisfy you. Feeds are infinite by design. Notifications are timed to disrupt flow. Reels, shorts give you the illusion of momentum without movement. The result? You spend hours chasing meaning without ever getting closer to it. Your phone is a cage you paid for. You don't scroll because it's fun. You scroll because it's easier than facing the discomfort of silence. Silence reminds you that you're off track, that your life isn't what it could be, that you're not who you promised yourself you'd become. And the system doesn't want you to hear that voice, because that voice is your awakening. So it drowns it. In clips, in memes, in outrage, in fake news, in curated lives. And every time you reach for that screen, you reinforce the cycle. Discomfort, distraction, dopamine numbness. Repeat. You're not consuming. You're being conditioned. Micro hits of powerlessness. They don't just addict you to dopamine, they addict you to helplessness. Everything becomes passive. You don't learn, you watch. You don't speak, you comment. You don't build, you like. You don't lead, you follow. These micro behaviors teach you something every day. You're not in control, you're just here for the ride. And once you believe that, you stop fighting, you stop thinking, you stop caring. You become the perfect citizen of the dopamine empire, distracted, numbed, and dependent. The addiction economy. Distraction isn't the end game, it's the funnel. Because after they weaken your mind, they offer you solutions for a price. You're anxious? Buy a self-help book. You're unfocused? Subscribe to a meditation app. You're out of shape? Try this biohack. You're insecure? Buy this status signaling thing. They sell you dopamine loops dressed up as self-improvement. But none of it sticks because your attention is still shattered. Your foundation is still broken. And so you stay stuck. Not by accident, by design. They don't want you healed. They want you hooked and just aware enough to blame yourself for not escaping. Real focus is rebellion. Imagine what would happen if you unplugged from it. No dopamine drip, No quick wins, no algorithmic sedatives, just you. You in silence, you in strategy. You with a clear mind and full autonomy. That's what the system fears most. Because the moment you take your attention back, you become dangerous. Focused men build. Focused men lead. Focused men don't need the system. So they make focus feel painful. They make boredom feel like failure. They make silence feel like death. But here's the truth, and focus isn't death, it's resurrection. Reclaiming your mind. If you want to break free, you don't need more motivation. You need detox. That means cutting screen time like it's a toxic relationship, removing apps that sell you your own addiction, protecting your mornings like they're sacred, reading physical books, spending time in boredom until your brain recalibrates, and most of all, training your mind to delay gratification again, because once you do, you'll start to feel it. Your edge, your hunger, your capacity to create instead of consume. You'll remember what it feels like to be a man with clarity, and they will hate you for it, because you won't be manageable anymore. You'll be sovereign. Let's be real. No one is forcing you to scroll. No one is making you binge. You're choosing it because your biology was hacked. But once you see it, you can resist it. Once you resist it, you can reclaim it. Once you reclaim it, you become unstoppable. The system is not scared of strong opinions, it's scared of clear minds. And in Chapter 4, we move from defense to offense. You've unplugged. Now it's time to rebuild your fire and become the man they tried to stop you from becoming. Now that you see the cage, the next question is simple. How do you break it? How do you become the man they fear, not the one they manage? The answer isn't in rebellion for its own sake. It's in reconstruction. You don't just unplug from the system. You rebuild yourself from the ground up. Mind, body, discipline, identity. This chapter isn't philosophy. It's the blueprint. The first rule, replace weakness with ritual. The system didn't just weaken you, it replaced your instincts with impulses. You were taught to react instead of choose, numb instead of reflect, obsess over speed instead of depth. So we reverse it with ritual. Ritual is the weapon of the focused man. Examples. Wake at the same time daily. Begin the day with silence, not noise. Train your body with precision, not punishment. Fast once a week. Write 1 page of brutal honesty daily. These aren't hacks. They're structure, and structure creates fire. The second rule, your mind is a fortress. Most men let anything enter their mind. Headlines, opinions, TikToks, junk. You want to rebuild your fire? Protect your gates. Start treating your mind like territory. If something doesn't sharpen you, it doesn't belong. Your inputs should. Challenge your beliefs. Clarify your purpose. Harden your thinking. Fuel your creativity. Sharpen your speech. Unfollow softness. Mute mediocrity. Block noise. A man with fire knows this. What I consume, I become. The third rule, train like you're preparing for war. Because you are. Not a physical war, but a spiritual one. Every day your discipline is tested, your integrity is tested, your energy is tested, so you train for it not as punishment but as preparation. This isn't about six-packs. This is about command. A man with fire knows this. What I consume, I become. The third rule, train like you're preparing for war, because you are, not a physical war, but a spiritual one. Every day your discipline is tested, your integrity is tested, your energy is tested, so you train for it, not as punishment but as preparation. This isn't about six-packs. This is about command. In solitude, you can hear your real thoughts, not the ones downloaded from culture, but the ones that define you. You don't need group chats to validate you. You don't need 12 opinions to make a move. You need silence. You need space. You need to hear your instinct again. Solitude isn't absence, it's presence, with self. The fifth rule: cut like a king. Once your fire returns, you'll start seeing things differently. Weak friends will annoy you. Shallow conversation will bore you. Comfort will make you restless. Disrespect will become intolerable. Good. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. Start cutting. Cut men who waste your time. Cut habits that drain your edge. Cut environments that mute your ambition. Cut language that softens your posture. A man who refuses to cut will bleed forever. And bleeding men don't lead. The final rule: build something real. Fire without a direction burns everything. Fire with structure forges empires. So build a body that reflects discipline. Build a skill that pays you to stay free. Build a code that outlives trend cycles. Build a product, brand, or brotherhood that gives other men the same fire you rebuilt. You weren't meant to obey. You were meant to create. And nothing silences the system like a man who no longer needs anything from it. They fear the man who builds himself daily, speaks with clarity, trains with intent, acts without apology, refuses the dopamine leash, walks away from approval, knows what he wants and is willing to be hated for it. That man, he's not angry. He's lit from within. And in Chapter 5, we finish this war. You've unplugged, you've trained, you've burned away the old self. Now we ask the real question: will you build a life they can't control, or just burn out in rebellion? In the next chapter, we seal this transformation and we make it permanent. Everything we've said so far leads here. You've unplugged, you've trained, you've sharpened your clarity, rebuilt your fire, and cut your softness. But now comes the real test. Can you live this way, permanently? Not as a phase, not as a rebellion, but as a blueprint. Because the system doesn't collapse just because you wake up. It waits, it adapts, it tempts. So the final chapter isn't about rage, it's about strategy. You don't just reject the old system, you build your own. Freedom isn't an idea, it's a structure. You can't fight slavery with vibes, you fight it with systems. This means building a life with financial freedom, so you're never silenced by a paycheck. Time autonomy, so no one else owns your calendar. Mental sovereignty, so your beliefs aren't bought. Emotional discipline, so manipulation fails. Creative control, so you leave something behind that can't be erased. Freedom isn't a feeling, it's a foundation. And most men never build it, because they never fully commit. They unplug, then scroll again. They train, then drift. They cut distractions, then let comfort creep back in. Not you, not anymore. The system will try to pull you back. As soon as you start winning, the system changes tactics, and now it won't shame you and it'll flatter you. It'll tell you, you've earned a break. You don't need to be so intense. You're already ahead. Relax. But you'll know the truth. That voice is the system, still inside you, still testing you, still trying to pull your fire back into the cage. And the moment you hear it, you respond with action. You build. Because nothing silences weakness like a man who keeps moving forward. Build in public, live in private. Train like war is coming. The men who escape the system don't just think differently, they operate differently. They wake up early, not to show off, but to protect their edge. They build income streams, not to flex, but to stay untouchable. They build their bodies, and not for attention, but for armor. They create, not to go viral, but to carve their name into stone. They live quietly. They move strategically. They answer to no one but their own standard. They don't need applause. They don't fear judgment. Because they don't live in the system and they live above it. Repeat until death. Here's the hard truth. The system never really goes away. It just changes form. So you must repeat this process forever. Detach, refocus, rebuild, sharpen, lead, until it's no longer a reaction. It's your identity. You don't live like this for 30 days. You live like this until the day you die. Not because you're scared, but because you've seen what life looks like when you're not awake, when you're weak, when you're obedient, and you promised yourself, never again. So, to summarize, the system wants you weak. But it's too late. You've seen behind the curtain. You've burned the mask. You've rebuilt the man. You're not motivated. You're activated. And that's all the system ever feared. Not the loud ones, not the complainers, not the ones who post, but the builders, the quiet, sharp, relentless ones, and the ones who train without applause, who say no without explaining, who walk alone when others beg for comfort, who live with intention and die without regret. That's who you are now. The man they cannot touch, the man they cannot own, the man who cannot be put back in the cage. Final call to action. If this hit you, if this video woke up something you forgot you had, then take action right now. Like the video. Not for me, but as a promise to yourself. Subscribe, because we're building a brotherhood of dangerous free men. Share this with the guy who's still half asleep, still drifting, still waiting for the world to give him permission. And if you're ready to go deeper, to learn how to master your time, build your body, sharpen your mind, and escape the system for good, there's more coming, but only for the men who stay sharp enough to find it. Welcome to the edge.